Class 2, Uses of Active and Passive Voice. Let's start with the uses of passive voice. When to use active and passive voice? There are a few points that you have to bear in mind when using the active voice and the passive voice. In the English language, the active voice is used generally as they give the information in a direct and clear manner. Make sure you do not use the passive voice just because you think it sounds better. Use it only if it is necessary. Remember that the active voice has the subject doing the action and the passive voice has the subject receiving the action. If you want to communicate your thoughts and ideas clearly and effectively, especially in a professional setup, it would be best to use the active voice. A pro tip for you to master the active voice and the passive voice is to know the structure and formula by which they work. For active voice, the structure is subject plus verb plus object. And for passive voice, the structure is object plus verb plus subject. These are some situations in which we can use the passive voice. 1. You should use passive voice when you do not know the active subject. For example, syllabus of the schools has been changed. On this passive sentences, we don't know who changed the syllabus. 2. You should use passive voice when the active subject is not important, and you want to make active object more important. For example, passenger were alerted. In this passive sentences, it is not important to know who alerted them. 3. You should use passive voice when the active subject is obvious. For example, 3 persons have been arrested for committing theft. Obviously, in this passive sentence, we know that they have been arrested by the police. 4. You should use passive voice when you want to emphasize the actions of the sentence rather the doer of the action. For example, more than 100 people were killed in a plane crash. 5. The passive is frequently used to describe scientific or mechanical processes to avoid personal pronoun or to emphasize the research and not the researcher. For example, the experiments on animal are being conducted regularly. 6. The passive voice is often used in news reports. For example, your concerns have been conveyed to the administration. 7. Sometimes, the sentence in the active voice does not sound good. And we use only the passive voice when speaking or writing. For example, in the active sentences sounds awkward, say, we call him Dr. Brown. Sound better if we passed to passive and said, he is called Dr. Brown. 8. You can use passive voice when you want to make more polite or formal statements. For example, in active voice, the sentence you have not completed the project sound less polite. Instead, we can change to passive and it could be, the project has not been completed, and in this way sound more polite. 9. You can use passive voice to avoid responsibility. For example, in active voice would be, we made a mistake, but to avoid the responsibility, change to passive and it could be a mistake was made. Well, in this way we finish some uses of the passive voice, but first we want to recommend something to you. Avoid shifting from active to passive or passive to active voice in the same sentence, because it can cause awkwardness and confusion. It means, you should use just active voice in a sentence, or just passive voice. For example, the correct forms are, I played football, and my friend watched the movie. You can see just active voices. Football was played by me, and the movie was watched by my friend. You can see just passive voices. The incorrect forms is, I played football, and the movie was watched by my friend, shifting a voice from active to passive. Just take into account. Well, this is all for this video. Check out the next videos. See you.